Paul is passionate about helping kids learn languages anywhere effortlessly. He has more than 26 years professional experience in education, serving as a teacher, self access learning coordinator, examiner, course writer, teacher trainer, product manager, and business development manager. Over the last 15 years, he's trained over 30,000 educators. His current role revolves around connecting children, parents, teachers, and schools, and helping them combine mind blowing learning data with natural intuition to make better informed decisions at each step of the learning journey. So, ladies and gentlemen, just a little bit of housekeeping as well. Could you please mute your mics and your videos? And Paul, I would like you to begin, please. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. It's good afternoon for me. Good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much for participating and selecting my session. I know you had three great choices today, so I really value the fact that you've selected mine. Today, I'm really, when we're talking about learning through play, obviously we seem to think about kindergarten and primary, but I don't want to kind of restrict ourselves to that. I'd be very interested to hear, though, what kind of age group you're teaching. So maybe I'll just pose that as the first question. What age groups or what grades? Let's do age group. What age group are you all teaching? Can you just put that in the chat, please? And just remember, when you're putting it in the chat, just remember to kind of share share with all panelists so that we can all see it. I'm sure you're used to doing this anyway. Okay, so we've got 13 to 15. Okay, so we've got some secondary. What else do we have? Grades 1 to 12. Okay, a wide age group. That was 3 to 6 adults. Okay, so we've got quite a wide age group, which is fine. I'm going to be mostly sort of taking my examples from kind of the ages of kindergarten and primary, but at the same time, please think about how you could apply the philosophies and the strategies to your context, okay? Because it's very difficult to make something suitable for every single grade in one presentation. So I'll need you to use your creative. One second, I think I've just share screen, okay. So I think one of the things that I really kind of inspired me to select this topic, actually there were a couple of things. One was that recently, over the last 12 months, I've been working globally with schools all over the world to essentially to bring back the joy of learning through play and through language learning apps. And I've really seen some really great results and great feedback. So I'd like to really use this opportunity to kind of share with you some of the best practices that I have learned. The second thing is learning through play. What I did in preparation for this session about a month ago, I put this question to in a couple of on Facebook and LinkedIn, and it's just a very simple question asking educators in various groups to answer, how do kids learn best? And I said, look, just give one word. So it was very interesting for me because the results came back sorry, I keep losing the screen. Let's go back there. Okay. So the results were, and as you can see them here, sorry, that most people thought learning through play and learning through fun and engagement was how kids learn best. What I found, though, was that although a lot of educators believe this, they didn't really know how to implement it. And even in kind of small doses. So today, really, I wanted to share with you not just the why, but also really think about exactly how you can implement it in your specific situation. Okay. Before we go on to the sort of practical how and implementation strategies, let's just first go back a step into what, and let's go back a little bit of in time into history, because learning through play, it's not a new idea at all, and it was actually born over 200 years ago. And you can see some of the key kind of pioneers behind this philosophy. Just to give me a break from talking, does anyone know any of these? Can you put maybe a number and a name if you know any of these people? Just put the number and then the name if you can guess in the chat box. That'd be great. Can anyone guess who they might be? Okay, we've got Maria Montessori. I presume that she's the only woman there, so she must be number 2. Just put the number if you can guess. Yeah. Anyone else? I'll give you 5 more seconds. It's quite challenging, apart from, I think, number 2. All right. So here's the answers. And what I want you to think, as I'm describing these people, just think about what they have in common. Okay. So Friedrich Froebel, he's very well known because obviously he recognized that children have unique needs and capabilities. And 200 years ago, he actually was responsible for creating the concept and term of kindergarten. That's German for child garden. And so he initiated that. He also was very, very focused on hands-on materials, on learning through experience and child-centered learning. I think most of you got number 2, Maria Montessori. I'm sure you all know Montessori schools and its philosophy, and that of course came from Maria Montessori from over 100 years ago. And of course, you know, she emphasizes independent learning. She puts a lot of importance on environment, making them prepared for learning. And as with Friedrich, a lot of focus on experiential learning, intrinsic motivation, and also child-centered learning. So a lot of commonalities here. And the last one, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name, Chen Hequin. He is
Paul, we can't hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I just I lost you there for a second. So Chen Hequin was especially focused on using the family as a primary learning unit to help kids learn better. So he was very much of the idea of learning is a community experience. The philosophy that it takes a village to raise a child. Okay, so I think just in short, what they all had in common was that they all believed in learning through play in. Okay, and in many ways, when we look at education, sorry, I lost my. As we see the differences between the two pictures, we can see how little has changed, right? I think these most countries, perhaps with the exception of places like Scandinavia, still view learning through play with sort of dubious eyes, and at worst they see it perhaps even as a waste of time, that they're not getting value for their learning. So, and it's interesting, I find that the Montessori schools around the world are kind of seen as premium or elite schools, which kind of shows you that there is a lot of recognition that her philosophy is still very much relevant today. So, I mean, the reality is that for all of the work of these three early pioneers, actually little has changed so far. And in fact, I think if they were alive today, they may be slightly disappointed by how things have turned out. However, it's not all negative, because two things have really shaken up the education industry as well as other sectors. And there's no surprise about the first one. It's the theme of this conference. It's really taken a global pandemic to kind of wake us up, right? I think COVID has accelerated the need for new learning models. And you've heard some of these earlier today, especially I think with regards to technology. Even having this virtual shows that we have the ability to adapt and make changes ourselves. And the second thing,
I think we've lost connection there.
can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I keep dropping out for some reason. So there's also a reawakening of the importance of neuroscience. In other words, the study of how the study of the brain and how it links to how we learn. So we call this the science of learning, and we're actually seeing that a lot of the ideas that are coming now from the data are confirmed by modern science. And for me personally, when I was trained as a teacher, there was very little about how kids learn, and it was just sort of put into very simplistic terms like the left brain and the right brain approach, or multiple learning styles, which has been questioned of late.
Paul, could you unmute yourself, please? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if we understood how kids learn, we would be in a much stronger position as educators to kind of create the optimized conditions for learning to take place. So let's jump straight into it. Let's have a look at what some of these key concepts are. I'm just going to focus on, I'm not even going to focus on 4 of them. I'm just going to focus on 3 because of time restrictions today. Let's have a look at attention, and I'll be giving some examples on how these link to, as I said before, how these link to technology, especially language learning apps, to see how these really play out and benefit students and teachers for that matter. So let's have a look at attention. Now, we all understand what attention is, but from a brain's point of view, attention can be described as a filter, yeah, that selects information to process while ignoring other data. And this allows this processing to happen and ensure the brain doesn't get overwhelmed, okay? So what implications does this have for us as educators? Well, firstly, we need to be able to grab kids' attention. If we can't grab kids' attention in any way, it's going to be very, very difficult for any kind of information exchange to take place. And the other thing we need to do is to minimize distractions, okay? So it's this very, very careful balancing act between minimizing distractions and grabbing attention. So let's have a look at how something like a language learning app can really grab a student's attention and really engage them, to put them in a position where they really want to learn. Even if they don't think, oh, today I'm going to learn, they're just thinking, maybe I just want to have fun today. But let's see how we can do that and how we can really get their attention. So have a quick look, and I'm just going to play you a 20-second activity. So my question to you is, how does this activity grab students' attention?
Duck says quack, 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 quack. Ducks are red, white or black. A horse says neigh, 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 neigh. Horses are brown or grey.
All right, so how does that grab? Well, firstly, maybe my first question is, do you think it would grab kids' attention? Do you think if you had your own kids, or do you think if you had students of the age of maybe 3 to 10, do you think this would grab their attention? Just put in the chat. Yes, everyone's saying yes. Okay, that was an easy question. Yes. What about, how does it do it? How does it grab attention? Why would they?
By colors and by sounds.
Right, by sounds, yeah. So we've got interesting sounds. Somebody said animations. Just put it in the chat box. So animation, music, yeah. Anything else? Modeling, yeah, that's an interesting one. Colorful, okay. So we've got both the visual and the auditory, right? Animations, yeah. So I think creating things which are colorful, musical, simple as well, but not too simple. Catchy music. I think if I gave this, my son is 4 years old, if I gave this to my son, I think he would kind of filter out everything else. He would focus 100% on what's happening on the screen. So my second question is a bit more challenging, but how did it minimize distractions? How did it minimize distractions? Have to think about that. How does it minimize distractions? A bit difficult. Let me give you 3 things. Number 1,
I think we've lost. Yes.
okay, yeah, sorry, I'm coming back. I'm still here. I just lost the screen. Sorry, guys. Let me just come back. Okay. Where are we? Yeah. So this, yeah, the second thing is to make it highly intuitive. So if the controls are very complicated, there's lots of things to click on, kids get distracted, they get lost. And the third thing, which you may have noticed, it was that the song, the game, the activity is very, very short. So if we make them between 1 to 2, maximum 3 minutes, this really keeps kids focused. Yeah. So normally as educators, we think the longer the better. The reality is sometimes the shorter the better to maximize attention. Okay. So in other words, less is more, and it's kind of quality over quantity. Okay. So I think this gets a nice sort of check mark for attention. The next one is active or active learning. They don't hear you call their name.
Paul, could you share your screen, please? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Put a yes in the chat if you've ever heard that. Oops. So I think as a parent, I can speak from experience that many times my son has been so engaged in something that I've called out his name and he's totally been unaware, not because he's ignoring me, but because he's just so focused. He's kind of in the zone, right? So we all know that, you know, to be active, we need to be active to learn, right? So there's two types of ways of being active. You've got mental activity and being physically active as well. So in this photo, obviously, we can see this kid is probably both mentally and physically engaged. I'm just going to skip to the third one, just for time's sake. Good difficulty. What I mean by this is that active learning and engagement is sometimes making the task more difficult increases the level of engagement to a certain point. We often think that we need to make things easy for the kids, right? In fact, if you make it too easy, they get bored and they stop. So we need to make things just a little bit challenging so that they're hungry for more, as it were. So what does this do for, how can this relate to education? Well, firstly, we need to make things challenging, and we need to make things engaging both physically and mentally. So have a look at this app, have a look at this activity and see how do you think it does it? Blank again. Not having much luck today. How, just put in the chat box, how do you think this kept kids active?
Ross, could you please share your screen? Yeah.
Sorry, I'll just go back 1 second.
We can see your screen now. Thank you.
Okay, so I think for that activity, the kids, you can see before it's very colorful. But the interesting thing was that, I don't know if you saw it, but as the level of difficulty increased, so the number of fruit started getting higher, the numbers started getting higher and higher, the actual level of difficulty started getting higher as well. It's more challenging. So it kind of stretches the kids to react in time for them to be able to hit it. And this really engages them in that process. So again, I think this kind of ticks a lot of the boxes in the active department. Also, going back to, we spoke about attention. I think it also has those characteristics of being colorful, simple, and short as well. So let's go to the last one. I'm just going to skip this one for now. Come back to that. And this comes back. So my question is, let's say you are, you're the boxing coach of this young boxer, and you obviously want him to be the best boxer in the world. And one day, you are visited by a baby genie, and he offers you one wish. And he can say, and so he says to you, well, I can remove your boxer's pain during training. However, on the day of the fight, pain will be restored. So he can temporarily remove all pain the boxer feels while he's training. Would you take it? Would you take that wish? Yes or no for your boxer? Just put in the chat whether you would do it or not. Yes or no? Someone says no, no. I think most people are saying no. And I would agree with you, for those of you saying no, because it relates to this issue of feedback, right? Pain in boxing is a source of feedback. It tells you very directly and very painfully, but also very quickly that you've made a mistake, you need to readjust, you need to reassess, and then you need to continue. Yeah? And boxers, of course, learn very quickly from this, the hard way. They'll always experience pain, but it's kind of part of the learning process. So the third part to this sort of neuroscience element is that feedback, the brain is always learning. It's a prediction machine. And when it gets it right or whether it gets it wrong, that helps it from the feedback to make a decision about, make predictions going forward. However, two things can really disrupt this cycle. Firstly, if the feedback is either absent or delayed. So just like our boxer, if he can't get feedback through pain, he'll never adjust and he'll never improve his decisions or his predictions, okay? So, and the second thing that really blocks this cycle is when it's not offered in a safe environment. Yeah. So for example, if kids are always afraid of making So in summary, let me just come back again, sorry. So in summary, kids not only need immediate feedback, but they also need errors to happen in a safe learning environment where there are no kind of immediate consequences. Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about things like learning apps is that kids can learn in the comfort maybe of their own home, and they can make mistakes, but there's no kind of immediate consequences. And we can obviously see this. I'm just going to take you through this very quick one. You can see here that the kids get immediate feedback. Look what happens when it's wrong. Okay, I'm just going to stop it there. But you saw what happened, right? The dog, as soon as the student got it wrong, the dog went from a happy face to a neutral face. There was a noise. There was points lost. So feedback was instant. And again, it's safe for the kids. They don't have to worry that there's going to be a significant consequence to that. So I also want to emphasize that we're not saying that these can replace teachers, but what it can do is it can save the teacher a lot of time. And when we think about what Jake was saying earlier about the flipped classroom model, it can really add value to the teacher, and it can complement the teacher in many different ways. And it can make our lives so much easier. So I just want to finish by offering and sharing 6 models that I have been working with through a number of schools and partners. I'd really like to sort of share them with you and see which one of these, hopefully there'll be one which you think that might work for the situation I'm currently in. Perhaps some of these models you're already working with. I'm going to go through some of the pros and cons very, very quickly. First of all, whole classroom. So this could be in a physical classroom, an online classroom. You're able to share on the big screen, as it were, your the activities, and you can use it maybe as a warm-up to start a class. You get the kids engaged. It generates a lot of interest. So those are the pros, the advantages. The disadvantages are perhaps that it's quite maybe teacher-centered. Apologies for that. Model number 2. Okay, back up. So model number 2. Model number 2 is where the kids have access to maybe tablets, or maybe there's some kind of lab at the school. And they dedicate some of the classroom time to that. So I think that the advantages of this is used in many schools, is that there's a lot of kind of group energy. They're all working together. Obviously, the disadvantage is that not all schools have access to either tablets or a computer lab, or that the computer lab can only be used once or twice a week. So, but anyway, that is a model that a lot of schools use.
Sorry to interrupt you, Paul. You just have 5 more minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
And number 3, this was a model that I learned last week, actually, but from a teacher in Australia, who says that during her classes, she has 1 or 2 devices at the back of the class. And if some of the students finish a little bit early, instead of giving them a worksheet as a reward for being fast, which can demotivate students, she gives them the tablet, and they do some fun activities while waiting for the other kids to catch up. The disadvantage is it's inconsistent. Not all kids share the tablet. Let me just get that up again. This is when you share. You may share a device among, let's say, 3, 4, 5 students. This actually has a lot of potential. I know that a lot of your schools are closed and you can't use this model yet, but this is a great way of really getting the kids to collaborate and teach each other. Disadvantages: it might be a little bit repetitive if you do it each time, and kids might not always get the individual practice time because there's several kids in the group. But that's model number 4. Model number 5 is where kids learn independently at home. Now we're switching from the school to the home, where they're learning independently at home. They maybe get assignments. They do it on the app. Maybe their parents are involved, but the parents can track progress, and they can see all of what their child is doing. So you can see here, the parent can see, oh, rabbit, they're having a few problems with rabbit, but they're doing really well on red and cat, because that's green. So they can really get involved in their kids learning. Sometimes this is directly in connection with the school, sometimes not. It really depends. And the last model, obviously, this model would be highly preferable to our friend Mr. Chen Hikin, because he was a true believer in having a community around learning, especially around family. And the last model is the blended learning model, or the flipped classroom model, which you heard perhaps Jake talk about earlier today, where the students complete
Paul, could you unmute your, yeah.
Okay. So in this model, everything that the students do on the app is being tracked by not only the parents but by the teacher as well. And you can get some really interesting data insights. Every single interaction, every click is measured in some or other. So the teachers and the school can see the individual progress, the class progress as well. So it's truly kind of connecting the school and the home. Yeah. So again, the kids, they might start at the school, they might do some activities on the board, then they might have some worksheets, the kids do it at home, maybe as a flipped classroom model or as review. The teacher can check progress, and then it goes back to the classroom. So it's really flexible, great for during COVID when schools are opening and closing. It has that, you're able to pivot between them. It has that great kind of homeschool connection. Disadvantage, perhaps it needs a bit more kind of teacher and school commitment. It needs everybody on board, but that can be easily done. So out of these, just to finish off, out of these 6 models, which one is the most interesting for you? Just put in the chat, which one is the most interesting one for you? Be very interested to know. Okay, people are saying 6, fully blended. 6, I would say, is probably, out of all of these, it might be slightly the most advanced one, the most challenging one, but it can still be very, very easily done. So you might notice that 1 is probably the easiest in terms of implementation, but it's fully blended is definitely, I think, in my view anyway, the one where the students get the most results from what I've seen. If you're interested in reading more about learning through play or about apps, these two books, highly recommend it. If you don't want to buy a book or you don't pay for a book, a lot of this content from today was inspired by the work of Dr. Kathy Hirsch-Asek. So you can go on her website. She's got some very interesting free articles on what I've been talking about. And if you're interested, if for those of you who said fully blended or any of the other models, please take a look at, if you go to the website, STUDYCAT.com, please have a look at the schools page, and you'll get some ideas about how you can, some of the activities and apps that may be suitable for your school. I would be more than happy if you email me, Paul at STUDYCAT. I'd love to discuss these models with you and see which one could fit your school and how we could possibly assist you and your school to set these up, get your kids learning, get them engaged, whether they are studying at home or whether they're studying at the school, it doesn't really matter. There's multiple models as we've seen. So thank you very much. I apologize for coming in and out, but I hope you got some interesting ideas and some new thoughts about how to bring the fun back into learning and learning through play. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paul, for your very, very, very interesting session.